Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Manibil. I wanted to add a few comments to a recent Stefan Molyneux video, right? Um, and it's mostly because he's so incredibly full of himself, right? He thinks he's basically apparently, the only genuine philosopher around, right? And apparently he has been for 20 years been unable to find anybody else who is even remotely able to argue in any fashion that he would consider correctly, or any kind of competition, you could say, to his output, right? And that's basically what he says here. So let me comment on that.
You could be anywhere, watching anything, doing anything, and I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm in competition with everything else in the known universe. I want to produce shows so compelling you could be in a car crash. Hope you're not. You could be in a car crash in the middle of one of my shows. And you're like, hold up, I'm not going to call anyone because I need to finish this before I call anyone. The jaws of life might interfere with those mellifluous tour of the colonies tones. That odd accent.
Yeah, apparently, it's the way he does things that is so compelling. It's the accent, right? He wants to be compelling. Well, that reeks of sophistry rather than philosophy to me. Philosophy shouldn't be compelling. Philosophy should just be, this is my argumentation. I'm not trying to be compelling, because if it's not compelling but still philosophy, it should still be represented, right? It shouldn't necessarily be compelling. Why would philosophy, or good philosophy maybe, right? Why would that be compelling? Why would it necessarily be compelling? You're supposed to have a philosophy show, right? So why does it need to be compelling? Well, if you think it should be compelling, you're more concerned about convincing me in any fashion of your conclusions, rather than presenting your fucking philosophy and let me be the judge whether or not it compels me into accepting whatever that might, whether or not that is a good set of argumentations or philosophy, and wherever that leads me into the conclusions doesn't matter, because it's the philosophy that has to be good, not the conclusions. It seems to me like this is a sophist who wants to make you feel like he's the only one who can give you these kinds of compelling insights, right? Just give me the fucking philosophy, right? Just give me the barebone shit. Just give it to me, right? And let me see if I find it compelling.
I want you to come out of here walking on air with a plan for your life that embraces and crushes all the obstacles in the known universe that stand between you and your bliss.
Okay. Is that what you want, right? Or you want me to think that that's what you're doing, right? By, being compelling and having a funny accent. The two of the colonies, right? Canada and Ireland, UK, whatever, wherever he has been, right? South Africa, I suppose. Why is that compelling? Saying that you're compelling is not an argument, right? That's just wishful thinking. Give me the fucking philosophy, right? And when I try to deconstruct what you have done in your philosophy, notably your book on ethics called UPB, which sucks, right? I have deconstructed every sentence in the first part, and it sucks. Let me just put it straight for the record, right? You can go watch my complete deconstruction of that book and two other books that I deconstructed, right? At least to some length. Before it, you can, I mean, if you're looking into a recipe, right, and the first three things in the recipe out of 10 ingredients is dog turd and, bicycle and used asswipe, then it's sort of, I don't care what the rest of the ingredients are, right? This doesn't work for me. And the same kind of approaches when I'm doing these kinds of deconstructions. If I reach a point where I say, it doesn't matter whatever comes from now on, I have deconstructed it to show you that this doesn't work, so I don't need to do the rest, right? It gets boring at some point. And I deconstruct the art of the argument and essential philosophy, as it's called, right? And they all suck. They all suck, right? So if you are this good philosopher, why don't you present the philosophy rather than telling me you're great, right? If you have to tell me you're great, it might be because you're not actually that great, right? You just have to convince the blind that you're the one-eyed king, right?
150%. Boom. Done. You're always in competition. And the people who fail are the people who forget that. Always in competition.
So who is he in competition with, right? Let me guess, right? I have listened to it already, right? But you know what is coming, right? He is not really in competition because he is so magnificent, right? He is so magnificent that the only competition he has is himself, right? What a fucking megalomaniac, right?
I'm straight up with you guys. I think I produce the best content out there.
Oh yes, because your opinion is it's so great. I don't have to do it. I just have to say that it's great, right? Okay, fair enough. He's done, a 250,000 podcasts or something like that, right? And a few weird books and so on. And when you deconstruct what he says, there's nothing that really hangs together, right? You might have an air of an idea somewhere that sort of, okay, I might have an idea where he's trying to go or something like that. But that's the best I can say, right? Without going into something that people might come back and say, no. There's nothing that hangs together, right? Okay, at least I'll give him that he's created an attempt to do something, right? That's as far as it goes, right?
Absolutely 150% believe that I produce the best content out there.
Of course you are, because you're a megalomaniac. And megalomaniacs, those people with an inflated ego, always think that they're so fucking great that it cannot possibly be anything wrong. If there's something that doesn't work in the world, it's because there's something wrong with somebody else. They're not getting they don't understand my genius, right? They are trying to get me, or they're trying to, erase me rather than accepting my brilliance, right? This is sort of the psychological mind frame that he's working in, right? Apparently. Yes, there aren't a lot of us people out here trying to present philosophy and doing it in a neutral, reasoned manner, you could say, rather than it always suffers from some kind of presupposition or bias or some kind of agenda or something like that, right? Very, very, very often. I haven't come across anybody. I would say maybe the best thing I can say about Stefan Molyneux is it's hard to pinpoint what agenda he has. And that's the best I can say, right? But he does have agendas, right? And it comes as it's like it's biased, right? He's biased towards some principles that he's fitting his philosophy around, rather than creating a philosophy that must lead to some particular conclusion, right? And saying that's the conclusion I'm going with because that's where my philosophy leads me. Rather, he has for instance, the non-aggression principle that he adhered to before he wrote the book called UPB. So when he wrote the book UPB, it channeled out by, surprise, surprise, ending up validating the non-aggression principle, right? So he's connecting the dots in the way that you would have to, conclude that, right? And also that it's so badly argued, it's on another planet at times, right? It's not really philosophy. I would hesitate to use the term philosophy, right? In connection with that book. So that it all falls to pieces that way, right? So if you cannot let anybody else's philosophy challenge your philosophy, how would you have any reference to whether or not what you're doing is good or not, right? Just you telling yourself that you're fucking great doesn't make you great. The great is sort of the best out there. Compared to what? Right? What are you comparing it to, right? And your opinion, I mean, one of the tricks that brilliant sophists do is being so self-convinced that they're great and saying that they're great that people actually believe it, right? It's all the crazy people that people follow, right? It's not those who are skeptical or doubtful and saying, I'm not sure about that. It's those who say, I am convinced I'm the greatest. And people, there's one who has found it, right? Rather, they never follow. People don't like a guy like Hume, for instance, which I think by far is the greatest philosopher back in history, right? Because he was skeptical and he was skeptical, right? And then he was also skeptical, right? The top three of the categorizations of his philosophy. He was basically a fucking skeptic at the same time as he was an empiricist, right? People don't like skeptics. They like the one who says, there's only one solution, and this is the solution. I've found it. I'm perfect. I'm brilliant, right?
I'm just in competition with my former content, right? Trying to find a better way to communicate, a better way to get it across for you.
Yeah, I'm constantly, trying to improve my shit here, right? I'm simply so great. And the only one I can compare myself with is myself, right?
Better way to bring philosophy and plug it into the Borg brain of this genius Saturn ring orbiting the planet of wisdom.
The planet of wisdom, right? He's very, he's very poetic in a way, right? Or the prose he's using, right? It's more like a poet. It's more like poetry than it's prose, right? It's more like I like to hear myself create Shakespearean levels of word constructions or sentence constructions, right? The Saturn ring, orbiting around the perfect philosophy of, mental, this kind of, rather than just saying, okay, I have an argument here, let me present it to you. I think this follows from this, and this means that this ends up being this kind of conclusion about a definition of knowledge, and so on and so on and so on, right? Just do it based. No. What he's concerned about is hearing himself talk, right? And convincing you that he's basically the only one who can give you anything. All the others are idiots, right? Just like his, History of Philosophers series, right? I might actually check up if there has been any additions lately. I'm still waiting on to tear his Hume thing apart, right? He's probably not going there, but let's see. It's like what those people he gathers around him are those who are not really interested in philosophy, right? Or don't understand what philosophy actually is, but rather have him fill their ears with, poetic honey of some kind, right? Rather than giving the straight up talk about his philosophy. The way he let me give you some philosophy, some of my, thoughts. I don't like when people only have one type of grin, right? If they can't sort of smile without going into like This kind of Joker grin, right? It's either this face or it's this kind of face, right? This to me, in my philosophy on the thinking I'm working from, it's a sign of somebody who is not quite right. It's somebody who's narcissistic or psychopathic or has some kind of emotional limitations, psychological limitations, where they have to force this face on themselves in order to look like they're actually having a positive air of some kind, right? When you look at it, it's like there's basically two faces. There's the normal, where we're staring you right into your face, trying to, like Car from the Jungle Book, right? Trying to hypnotize you, or it's this very sort of like one who has got too many facelifts, right? This kind of a very agitated kind of self-inflicted smiley face, you could say, right? I don't like that. That rubs me the wrong way, right? It's like you can't do this kind of normal, very kind of face where you have a lot of different kinds of expressions, depending on the state of your mental state or your emotional state, whatever it's called, right? This seems to me, and this is another example like this. It feels fake, right? Very fake indeed.
I'll tell jokes, I'll sing songs. I'll take my shirt off,
Yeah, because when you're doing greatest philosophy of all time, of course taking your shirt off is on the top list of what people want in good philosophy, right? Or singing and dancing and, give me a fucking break, man.
I'd dance if you let me. I don't really do full body stuff that much, but I went to a lot of discos when I was younger. I can bust a few moves. So
that was where you were going to find your, the perfect Tradcon wife in the disco, right? Or what? Is that why you only have one child rather than two? You're turning two adults into one child, right? You are halving the world population like this. Is that the message you want to get across?
Oh, I'm always in competition. That's wonderful. I mean, that's stressful. No, it's not stressful. It's not stressful as long as you recognize that the purpose of competition is not to have you win, but to have you excel. These studies have been done. People run their fastest when there's another runner who's just a little faster than they are. People do their best when they're in competition.
Show me your competition. Show me 4 or 5 examples of your competition, please. Right? Would you mind? Right? Mr. Bitcoin Mansion, right? You have like $100 million worth of Bitcoin or something like that. You might be able to finance a presentation of the top 5 competition doing philosophy, right? And present why they're so good and why they're just ahead of you and make you want to do better, right? Who are those above you that you are, trying to, compete with, right? Show it. Show the philosophy, man, right? Or you're just full of shit.
The purpose of competition is not winning. The purpose of competition is excellence. That satisfaction that comes from knowing that you reached deep down inside of you, you pulled up the earth roots of your wisest.
Yeah, when I tried to do that on your show, 6 months ago or so, right? Trying to convince you that there's a huge problem, a contradiction, actually a paradox in your thinking, in your metaphysics, right? And you basically muted me out of the conversation, then kept talking for 20 minutes, basically telling everybody how stupid I was, right? Rather than being able to reach down there where you're talking about reaching, right? So you can't do that. You're just trying to convince people you're doing it. As long as you can convince people you're great, it doesn't really matter if you're great, right? If you can convince them, that's enough. And that's how a sophist thinks, right? A sophist doesn't really care whether or not he's right or wrong, as long as people believe he's right. Right?
Essence, and put it into some endeavor that leaves a footprint on the sands of time, or hopefully the sands of time that turn into the concrete of time. You left a mark that can't be erased. The deeper you go, the wider you spread. The deeper I go into myself, the more I connect with you. And try.
Yeah, well, you can't go very deep then. If you can't even recognize a huge motherfucking elephant in the room in your metaphysics, right? And you start yelling at me and you mute me out of the conversation and then, upload it as if it was the greatest discussion of metaphysics yet. Something like that, right? Without my consent or anything like that. That's the level you can go to. That's how deep you can go, right? That sounds shallow to me rather than deep.
Trying to weigh analogy, form, content, reasoning, argument, inspiration. I have about 1,200 balls in the air. I won't do a handstand and show you. I have about 1,200 balls in the air. Every time I'm doing one of these things, it's not scripted. This just came out of nowhere. Boom.
Boom! It came out. I have 1,200 balls, 1,200 blue balls. Right? I have so much going on at the moment. And don't interrupt me. I'm simply trying to think here, right? Yes, I'm so great. Boom! It just comes. Hey, boom, there. One, Shakespearean presentation after the other that, that tears down the walls of problems in philosophy. I'm simply so great, man. Right? Why not just do some fucking philosophy? Why don't you just present your first principles, right? Make a show showing your first principles. Show the reduction base of your metaphysics. What is it, right? How do you get from A to B to C to D in your philosophy? What's the definitions of subjectivity? What's the definition of objectivity? What's the definition of truth? And so on and so on. Based on that reduction base way down deep there in your metaphysics, right? Why don't you present it rather than tell people how great you are? John like Hitchcock said, right? Don't tell it. Show it, right? Show it to me. Show me that you're the greatest. And, you might also give me a few hints on 4 or 5 of those competitions you are talking about, right? Just in front of you that makes you go that extra mile, right? Give it to me, man, right?
Gotta ride it. Gotta figure out a way to ride that lightning so that it strikes all of us in the spine and lights us up. So we're visible from space.
What the hell is he talking about?
Always be in competition. So your girlfriend is in competition with your indifference, with your lack of resolution, with other women, with her aging out, with her desperation. She's in competition. So if you act like you're in competition, you can do good things. I want to be in the middle of a speech that the angels could not pay or bribe you to switch away from.
What?
I don't want the words thudding into your life like meteor.
I know that this I'm taken a bit out of context. He's trying to help somebody who's been with his girlfriend, I think, for 3 years, and they haven't decided on anything yet, right? And they're probably both, trying to monkey branch to something better, right? Or at least she is, right? She keeps him in sort of on the hook until she finds something that's better, and then he says bye-bye, right? So if she has been sticking around for 3 years, he should basically dump her, right? Because she is not marrying him. That means she is not marriage material, right? She might keep him as a backup if she doesn't find somebody who's a couple of levels better, right? So she will have to marry him. So it's nice to have sort of a backup you can always drag out when you can monkey branch to a higher level quality male, right? So I would dump her immediately, right? There are other women out there. Don't be caught up in your emotions about women, right? That's what they take advantage of, right? Just if she doesn't want to marry and have kids and you want that, go on to the next one, right? It doesn't matter how cute she is. It doesn't matter how beautiful she is, right? Dump her because it's not going to work. No matter what, it's not going to work, in my opinion, right? Get on to the next one, right? There are plenty of fish in the sea.
There's igniting a forest. She's in competition with your indifference and other women. And your extended time frame being a man. Are you living in life like you're neck and neck with the best runner and you really, really want the prize?
Yeah. So I don't really care about his, answering this question for the listener, right? When he's comparing that to his philosophy, he's in competition. I would fucking like to see that competition. Let me see the head of the field of that competition. Give me at least the top 3 or something like that, right? That he's competing with. Show it to me, Mr. Molyneux, right? Why don't you show that? Are you just full of shit? Are you just throwing words out in order to hoping that people believe what shit you throw at them, right? I don't buy this shit.
Are you living that way? Are you? Are you? Huh?
Huh? Oh, man. Oh, he triggers the bejesuses out of me, right? Oh, man. I still have a grudge on myself for listening him to him for so long before I realized how ridiculously bad he is at philosophy, right? I had to become a great philosopher, at least in order to, according to my own standards, right? What I find to be good philosophy is when you have your own philosophy, right? And you can argue for why you think it's good. And also say, okay, I guess this part of my philosophy might be a little fluffy, right? I need to improve that. Or, find some argument that can fit, or, argue well for why it might be the case or might not be the case. Whatever, right? At least you can do that. Then you're a decent philosopher, at least. I find myself to be a fairly decent philosopher, right? But he's just throwing words at you, man, right? When did you ever see something that you could call genuine philosophy? He's just throwing words at you, right? He's, logging in every other 2 days and just talking to his, congregation and telling them how great he is and give me money, right? Who the hell would use that for anything, right? Who the hell would use that as, if he can give you some good, as I just did before, if you're in this situation with a woman or a man or, family, whatever, and you might want to do this or try this and think about this, whatever, fine. Okay, fine. But that's not philosophy, right? Philosophy is the thinking that leads to you to those conclusions, right? And philosophy is actually all the foundational things before you reach, knowledge and ethics, moral principles, and so on, right? And it has to hang together in a treatise that shows how you get from A to B to C to D and so on, right?
Or are you just kind of catnapping your way through sludgy indifference?
Okay, I think I've got my point across here. So hope you enjoyed. Please share, like, and subscribe. I would like you to share my shit if you can, please. And otherwise, see you in the next one. Have a nice day.